Joining us right now in the Vegas Today KXNT Live Line, former Nevada State Treasurer, now a declared candidate for the GOP nomination for the 3rd Congressional District, Dan Schwartz. Dan, good morning, and welcome to Vegas at 8.
Good morning, Alan. Again, thanks for putting me on the show. A great show. Happy New Year to you and your staff, and we're ready to go.
I appreciate that. Happy New Year to you and you folks as well. So I want to ask you, you've run for various offices. You did win the Nevada State Treasurer some years ago. What motivated you, though, to want to run for the 3rd Congressional District?
Sure, Alan. What I can say is this, is our country has changed. Back in 1789, we had 3 million people stretched along the eastern seaboard. We now have 330 million people spread across the continent. Our government has really become dysfunctional, and no one has said anything about it, and that is the driving purpose. And what I want to do now is I say that is one reason why I am strongly endorsing Donald Trump for president. I think that he has had a great economic program. You certainly compare our economy under Biden versus his. But I think from my standpoint, more importantly, he's trying to bring order to the Republican Party. And I think that's really key. If we're going to be governing, we've got to have a message or messages, and Mr. Trump is doing that. Let me also say at the same time, if I can, that there's some confusion about the selection of delegates to the National Convention in Nevada. And, I think President Trump would have won either one of them, but I think the caucuses are key. It gives people a chance to talk to their neighbors. It overcomes the problem of voter ID. So I think the caucuses are very important, and certainly I strongly support Donald Trump, and I think he's going to be the next president.
I think you may very well be right. You and I may agree on a lot of things, but we're certainly going to disagree on the caucus and the primary. I think that was a huge mistake, and I did not support the caucus. And the primary is the law of the land in Nevada. But Donald Trump, DeSantis, a lot of refused to participate in the primary, and so the caucus is going to be the deciding factor as to the delegates who go to the national convention. So I'm not participating in the caucus, by the way, but I do recognize that Trump is going to win that, and he's going to get the delegates from Nevada to go to the convention. And the way the election, the whole campaigning has gone up to this point, it certainly seems that you and I have talked about this before. It seems that every time that he's indicted around the country and all these different joke indictments, his numbers go up 1-2 points. And every time a state turns around and says, we're going to take him off the ballot, he goes up another couple of points. People realize that the system that exists, the liberal Democrat system, has abused Donald Trump as much as people may or may not like his got a boisterous personality and everything. But nonetheless, he's been abused by the system. And I think people are downright ticked off about that.
Yeah, no, your comments on the caucus first, I think there's no question there's some confusion there, but I think it has its strong points. The other point, too, and I think, you try and ask why is Donald Trump popular? And I think that there was a good column in one of the papers today, that the bureaucratization of our society. And I think that President Trump has really fought that. And I think that's very much part of his appeal. The other reason is, Joe Biden is touting his great economy. And yeah, the numbers are good, but for most people, I think inflation has really eaten into the gains. And most people, not most, but a lot of people are just watching their standard of living decrease. And I think both of those are driving forces for the fort for Trump.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Support
you
Trump.
look at, I mean, the inflation situation. You've got an economic background. You understand this as a successful businessman. But while the rate of inflation may have decreased to a degree, it still builds on the month before and the month before that, month before that, the year before that. So, I mean, people are still going to the stores, supermarket, and are paying a whole lot more for their goods and services. People's automobile insurance is going up exponentially. Everything, services, food, whatever goods you buy, everything's going up. So, they can tout a successful economy where inflation is beginning to come down. But meanwhile, they've screwed it up royal. That's number one. Number two, I mean, let's just be honest. It's not even his age because Trump's not that far from Biden. It's Biden's lack of mental acuity. He has to be let off the stage. He's talking in the middle of a thought, and he goes, oh well, you know what I'm saying. Never mind. You know about that thing. I mean, that's where the guy comes from. The guy is not operating with all the oars in the water.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Al. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for the president, watching him sort of just
I don't feel sorry for him. He's put himself in a situation. His wife has put him there also. It's right. Gross.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, Al, and I was thinking about this morning, is in a sense, Biden, in a way, misled the country. He was chosen over Trump in 2020 as a transition president, and instead of transitioning, I mean, I wouldn't have voted Democrat anyway, but they would have had some better candidates. He just said, hey, man, I'm in power. Wow, I'm going to stay here. Uh-huh. And he never really brought on, other candidates who could replace him. And I think that's going to prove fatal.
They ran a really a tactical campaign that was well thought out during the COVID shutdown. They kept him in the basement, and he was never seen, rarely seen by the public anywhere. Right. And his whole campaign was based on what? On press releases. And so, it was a committee that ran for president basically, and that's how they beat Trump. And only one debate. I don't even know if Biden's going to debate if he runs. By the way, I am of the belief that he will not be running in November, that he's running now, but I think that he will be withdrawing before the Democrat convention, and I think that they're going to wind up picking someone else. Some people are talking about Michelle Obama. I'm thinking that Gavin Newsom is probably their next go-to person. But I just don't see Biden as being the guy that's going to run in November. He doesn't have the stamina. I mean, look at him, really.
Yeah, no, Alan, I think you could well be right, and I think Gavin Newsom is a strong candidate. J.B. Pritzker in Illinois has got the bucks to run.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris seems to be the crowd favorite, or at least
she won't get it. She won't get it, and because she doesn't get it, that's going to tick off, I think, part of the Democrat Party, who's going to say, you can have a black woman, but meanwhile she, checks two boxes, but meanwhile, I think a lot of people will be ticked off on the Democrat side, the left side. That's you bypassed the next person who should have been in there, because I mean she's another one that's not operating with all the oars in the water. I mean, please. I mean, you can see. Oh, you can see what's going on.
Yep.
Joining us on the Vegas Today KXNT Live Line is Dan Schwartz, a candidate for the GOP nomination for the 3rd Congressional District. Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. We talked a lot about national politics and Trump and other things. Talk to me about the some of the issues, though. People are interested to know your thoughts on education, the way it's going. Education, immigration, those are two huge issues.
Sure, Alan. Again, thanks for having me. I've always enjoyed talking with you, and this morning is no exception. My platform is actually a little different than probably most others. I'm trying to somewhat nationalize the debate. Congress is a national institution. The state, when I was state treasurer, we dealt with state issues. I have four main themes, which is not to say I'm overlooking education, because I am not. The first one is I think it's really important that our young people engage in national service. It doesn't have to be in the military. It can be in Teach for America. It can be in the Peace Corps. But I think it's absolutely critical that we give something back to our country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you're saying that. Most people refuse to say that. Good for you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Alan. And I was in the military for 2 years. I was a warhead guard in Germany, but I met people who I didn't even know existed. And I think that's one of the reasons for the divisiveness in this country today. Second theme is term limits.
Absolutely.
I've heard. Yeah, no, thank you. And I've heard the argument, well, we need people with experience. Well, you can get all the experience you want in 10 or 12 years. We're a long way from it, but what I would propose is 12 years, 2 terms for the senators, and I want to expand the representatives to 3 years. They get 4 terms. I think it's also critical for Supreme Court justices, 10 years. I mean, we have a group of very wise men. They all went to Harvard and Yale, great, but they are accountable to no one, and anyone who's accountable to no one begins to misuse the power. 3 is the tax system. I think I applaud Trump's 2017 tax laws, but the middle class needs some consideration. And I think it's coming up in 2025, and we need to work on that. 4th is immigration. We just can't continue with what we have now. And this sounds harsh, but I would close the border. I would not let any immigration in until Congress does what it's paid for, and that is to fix the immigration system. 5, if you and this is a state issue, is if you remember, I really led the charge on ESAs. It was brought up by someone else, but they gave it to the state treasurer and me to fix it. We tried. We passed regulations. We had enrolled 10,000 families, and then for the names that cannot be mentioned, they scuttled it. And that's really a shame, because we would be on year 5 now. The Democrats' argument was, well, we've got to support public education. And I agree. I went to a public grammar school. I went to a public high school. But the problem in Nevada is that when I was state treasurer, we were 51 out of 50. I'm exaggerating, but not by much.
So you are focusing on education too, because this is we're talking about parental choice when it comes to education. I think you are right on the mark for that, and I agree with you totally. This is it's a national issue, it's a state issue, it's a parental rights issue, and this is something that we've got to focus on. I agree with you on immigration also. Term limits, I would vary it a little bit, because if 1 term for a U.S. Senator, 6 years, 3 for a House of Representatives, 6 years. You can't accomplish in 6 years what you went to accomplish. You shouldn't be there. Our founding fathers, didn't make it a lifelong job, career. It was there for a part-time. They went back and they did their regular jobs. I'm up against the clock. I can't stay much longer. But if people want to find out more about your campaign, how can they do it?
Okay. Dan Schwartz for Nevada.com. Dan Schwartz, SCHWARTZ for Nevada.com.
Easy. Dan Schwartz for Nevada.com. Easy to remember.
Right.
Dan, I wish you the very best. I'll talk to other people in the races I already have, and I do wish you the best in your quest, though. Take good care and stay well, and the best to you in the days ahead.
Good. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it, and bring me back when you think it's time.
I'm Alan Stock, and this is the Alan Stock Answer on KXNT.